Everyone thought Lily Carter was just an ordinary woman, an art gallery owner clinging to her father's fading legacy. But overnight, her world collapsed. Bankruptcy, betrayal, and an auction threatened to strip her of everything she loved. Then came Adrian Knight, the billionaire playboy, the man whose name filled tabloids with scandal, seduction, and danger. He had wealth, power, and the cold arrogance of someone untouchable. But Adrian carried a secret. To inherit his family's empire, he needed a wife, and he needed one fast. So he offered Lily a deal, a 1-year contract marriage. No love, no emotions, no strings attached. To Lily, it was salvation. $10 million in exchange for 1 year of pretending. Enough money to save her gallery, rebuild her life, and silence the wolves at her door. But buried inside the fine print of that contract was something no one ever told her, something designed to trap her forever. If she failed to uphold the marriage for 12 months, every last Carter asset, from her father's gallery to her childhood home, would become Adrian's property. Every smile he gave her, every touch that left her breathless, every promise whispered in the dark. Was it real, or just part of the game? And when enemies from Adrian's past resurfaced, threatening not only their marriage but their very lives, Lily realized the truth. This was never just about money. This was about survival. But the truth behind it is much darker. Lily Carter was not born into a life of glittering parties and endless privilege. She was born into art, into brushstrokes and colors that seemed to breathe with life. Her father, Thomas Carter, was no ordinary man. He was a dreamer who built an art gallery from nothing but passion and grit. In the heart of the city, his gallery became a sanctuary for forgotten painters, rare collections, and struggling artists who needed a place to be seen. To the world, it was just another gallery. But to Lily, it was home. She grew up wandering through dimly lit halls, the smell of turpentine and old canvas clinging to the air. Other children had playgrounds. Lily had marble floors, sculptures, and the quiet hum of her father's voice, explaining how art was never just paint on canvas. It was the story of a soul. But behind the beauty was fragility. The Carter family was not wealthy. Every exhibit was a gamble, every auction a desperate prayer that enough buyers would walk through those glass doors. Lily's father worked long nights, his hands stained with ink and paperwork, fighting to keep the gallery alive. Her mother had left when Lily was only 5, too restless for the uncertain world of art, too hungry for stability to stay. From that day forward, Lily's father became everything: protector, mentor, family, and Lily adored him for it. Still, childhood was not gentle. She watched creditors bang on their doors, demanding payment. She saw her father hide unpaid bills in the bottom drawer of his desk, shielding her from reality, but never truly succeeding. Some nights, dinner was nothing more than bread and cheese, yet he would smile, pretending it was a feast. Those cracks, small but relentless, began shaping her early. Lily learned to smile through hunger, to laugh through worry, to stand tall even when the world whispered that she would break. But then came the moment that changed everything. At 17, Lily stood beside her father as the gallery hosted its most ambitious exhibit yet, a rare collection on loan from abroad. The room was filled with murmurs of awe, the clinking of champagne glasses, and for one night, she felt untouchable. She wore her mother's old dress, the only beautiful thing left from the woman who had abandoned them, and for a fleeting second, she believed life could truly change. Then, disaster struck. The largest painting of the night, a priceless portrait, was vandalized right there in the gallery. The culprit was never caught, but the whispers were cruel: negligence, incompetence, a failing gallery run by dreamers. Lawsuits followed, debts piled higher, and the Carter name began to lose the quiet respect it had once carried. Lily saw her father age overnight. His hair grayed, his smile dimmed, yet he refused to give up. For the next decade he fought harder than ever, trying to restore what had been lost. And Lily, his only daughter, became his shadow. She learned the language of art, the value of each piece, the way to charm collectors, and the cold truth of survival in a world that worshipped money more than beauty. By her mid-20s, she had become a fierce guardian of her father's legacy. But fate can be cruel. Her father died suddenly, an unexpected illness that stole him in a matter of weeks. One moment he was guiding her through an upcoming auction. The next, she was holding his cold hand in a hospital bed, promising she would protect the gallery no matter what. She was alone now. No mother, no siblings. Just Lily, and a mountain of debts her father had hidden from her until the very end. That was the day innocence died for her. On the other side of the city, another childhood was unfolding, one far darker. Adrian Knight was born into a dynasty. His father, Charles Knight, ruled over a financial empire so vast that it could crush companies overnight. To the public, the Knights were American royalty, palatial estates, exclusive parties, and influence that reached the highest levels of politics. But inside the mansion, it was another story. Adrian and his twin brother Elliot grew up under suffocating expectations. Every move was monitored, every decision judged. Their father was a tyrant in tailored suits, a man who believed affection was weakness and mistakes were unforgivable. Adrian learned early to hide his emotions. He wore masks, perfecting the art of the smirk that would one day make headlines. But behind closed doors, he was just a boy desperate for approval. Elliot was different, gentler, curious about art, drawn to stories that lived inside paintings. He was the light, Adrian the shadow. Then one night everything burned. The fire tore through the Knight estate like a monster unleashed. Adrian escaped, but Elliot didn't. Adrian would never forget the sound of his brother's screams, the sight of flames reflected in his father's cold eyes, the weight of guilt that would follow him forever. From that day on, Adrian changed. The carefree child was gone. In his place stood a boy who learned that the world was merciless, that love was dangerous, and that survival required ruthlessness. He grew into the playboy billionaire the world loved to hate, reckless, calculated, untouchable. But beneath the scandalous headlines and the photographs of him draped in luxury, there was always the shadow of that night, always the memory of Elliot. And though no one knew it yet, Elliot's death was tied to the Carter family, to the gallery Lily had sworn to protect, to a secret hidden in paint and canvas, waiting to be uncovered. Lily Carter and Adrian Knight grew up worlds apart, one in a modest gallery struggling to survive, the other in a mansion drowning in power. Yet both were shaped by loss, by betrayal, by the relentless hand of fate. And when their paths finally collided, it wasn't by chance, it was destiny. Two broken childhoods converging into a storm neither of them could escape. The morning after Lily Carter signed the contract, her name no longer belonged to her. It belonged to the headlines. Billionaire playboy Adrian Knight engaged to mystery woman. The tabloids screamed her face across glossy covers, her once private life dissected in columns and whispers. Paparazzi camped outside her father's gallery, hunting for secrets buried in her past. By nightfall, the woman who once struggled to keep the lights on was the fiancée of one of the world's most notorious men. For Lily, it felt like walking into another universe. Adrian's world was not simply wealthy, it was intoxicating. The penthouse perched above the skyline like a throne in the clouds, walls of glass reflecting the glitter of the city below. Designer gowns appeared in her closet overnight, delivered by stylists who spoke of fashion houses she had only read about in magazines. Chauffeurs, private jets, champagne breakfasts, luxuries she had never dared to imagine. At first she told herself it was survival. This marriage was business. Every diamond necklace, every camera flash, Every polite smile at the galas was a performance, a mask she wore for a contract. But masks have weight. And behind them, something darker began to stir. The first public test came at the Sinclair Gala, a glittering affair hosted in the grand ballroom of the Sterling Hotel. The chandeliers blazed with golden fire, diamonds glimmered on every wrist, and the scent of wealth clung to the air like perfume. Adrian arrived in his element, every step exuding control, every glance commanding attention. Lily, in a midnight blue silk gown, felt like an imposter among titans. Cameras flashed in a storm as Adrian pulled her close, whispering in her ear, "Smile for the cameras. If they sense fear, they'll tear you apart." Her pulse hammered, but she smiled. That night she met Vanessa Sinclair, the woman who once held Adrian's heart. Tall, elegant, and venomous, Vanessa smirked as if Lily were a joke in her private play. "He didn't tell me he had a new pet," she purred, her words sharp enough to cut through silk. Lily answered with quiet steel, "Funny, I was about to say the same about you." The air crackled. For the first time, Adrian's grip on Lily's waist tightened, not just as an act, but as protection. Then came Damien, Adrian's stepbrother, the man with a smile that never reached his eyes. He looked at Lily with something that felt less like curiosity and more like hunger, for power, for truth, for destruction. "I hope you know what you're doing," he warned, his voice velvet wrapped around a blade. "Being Adrian's wife is a death sentence." Lily laughed it off, but his words lingered. From one event to another, her life spun faster. Board members studied her at dinners, reporters screamed questions on red carpets, and strangers speculated about her in whispers she could never silence. Lily Carter, the quiet gallery girl, became Lily Knight, the billionaire's wife-to-be. She told herself it was temporary. 1 year, just 12 months. Yet the deeper she stepped into Adrian's world, the harder it became to remember who she had been before. Because nothing about Adrian was simple. Every smile carried an edge. Every touch felt like a test. He was cold one moment, intoxicating the next. In the stillness of the penthouse, when the cameras were gone, his silence was heavy, his eyes unreadable. She caught glimpses of something fragile beneath the steel, a flicker of pain when his father's name was mentioned, a clenched jaw when she asked about Elliot. But just as quickly, the mask returned. Adrian Knight was untouchable, or so he wanted the world to believe. The gallery, her father's legacy, was never far from her mind. She spent nights reviewing unpaid bills, trying to manage what little control she had left. But Adrian had other ideas. He arranged for reporters to feature the gallery in society columns, not as a failing business, but as the treasured project of his fiancée. Donations poured in, buyers returned. The Carter Gallery was alive again, though Lily couldn't shake the truth. It was not hers anymore. It was his game, his money, his power. And with every headline, every photograph of them together, the world began to believe in their fairy tale. But not everyone. Anonymous notes slipped beneath her door. "You don't belong in his world. Leave before it's too late." Strangers sent photographs, grainy images of Lily walking alone, scrawled with words like "property of Knight." Fear crept in, but Adrian dismissed it. "Enemies are everywhere," he told her, his tone sharp. "Get used to it." Still, something undeniable was happening. Late at night, when the city hummed below and the glass windows reflected only their silhouettes, Lily began to see cracks in Adrian's armor. She saw the way his hands trembled after tense phone calls. She heard him pacing in the study, whispering to people she never met. Once, She caught him staring at a photograph tucked away in a drawer. Two boys, smiling, arms slung around each other. Elliot. But when she asked, his voice went cold. Don't. Some things are better left buried. Her rise to fame was not only gilded, it was haunted. Every public victory came with a private scar. Every glittering night ended with whispers in the dark, yet the world could not look away. To outsiders, Lily and Adrian were a fairy tale come alive. The billionaire playboy finally tamed, the ordinary woman turned queen of the city. But behind the flash of cameras was a dangerous truth. The contract that bound them was more than a transaction. It was a trap, a ticking clock. And the closer Lily came to Adrian, the deeper she was pulled into a game where love, power, and survival blurred into something she could no longer control. By the end of those first months, Lily Carter was gone. In her place stood Lily Knight, polished, photographed, envied. But inside, the girl who once found peace in the quiet halls of a gallery was unraveling. She had risen into Adrian's world of fame and fortune. But somewhere deep down, she knew the fall was coming. And when it did, it would be catastrophic. At first, Lily thought the hardest part would be the performance, the fake smiles, the scripted hand-holding, the staged photographs for the press. But she was wrong. The hardest part was the silence. Adrian's silence. The way he avoided her questions with a smirk. The way his eyes darkened whenever she mentioned his past. The way he seemed to carry a storm inside him that no one was allowed to see. And in that silence, secrets lived. The clause in the contract. One night, unable to sleep, Lily sat at Adrian's mahogany desk. The city glittered beyond the penthouse windows, but her eyes were fixed on the folder she had signed weeks earlier. She told herself she only wanted to remind herself of the terms. She told herself it was harmless, but then she saw it. A single paragraph buried deep within the dense legal jargon. In the event that Lily Carter fails to uphold the marriage for a full year, all Carter assets, including, but not limited to the Carter Art Gallery, will transfer to Adrian Knight. Her blood ran cold. Her hands trembled. She had signed away her life. When she confronted Adrian, slamming the papers down on his desk, he didn't flinch. He only sipped his scotch, eyes gleaming in the dim light. "You finally read the fine print," he murmured. "You tricked me," she spat, rage trembling in her voice. He set the glass down with deliberate calm. "No, you tricked yourself. You wanted salvation. I offered it. You signed." The smirk on his lips was infuriating. But beneath it, Lily saw something else, something dangerous. This was never just a business deal. It was control. Scandal in the shadows. Days later, the tabloids exploded. Fake marriage. Billionaire's contract exposed. Gold digger. Lily Carter sells herself for survival. Someone had leaked the truth. Reporters swarmed the gallery, spitting accusations, shoving microphones in her face. Online, strangers hurled venom, liar, manipulator, thief. Adrian remained cold, untouchable, as if the scandal amused him. But at night, Lily heard him on the phone, his voice sharp, his anger barely restrained. Someone close had betrayed them. The pressure mounted. Investors wavered. Adrian's board threatened to push him out, and Lily's reputation crumbled. And then came the photographs. Grainy images splashed across the internet. Adrian brushing a strand of hair from Lily's cheek, the way his eyes lingered on her when he thought no one was watching. Too intimate. Too real. They weren't fake. Someone had been following them. The realization hit like ice. This was no longer about gossip. Someone was watching. Someone wanted her destroyed. Adrian's past. Desperate for answers, Lily searched Adrian's study late one night. Behind locked drawers and false compartments, she found fragments of his past. Old newspaper clippings, photographs, documents yellowed with age. Her heart twisted as she pieced it together. The fire that killed his parents, the death of Elliot, the whispers of foul play. When Adrian caught her, the mask cracked. For the first time, she saw not the ruthless billionaire, but a man haunted. "They weren't trying to hurt me," he said, voice low, almost broken. "They were trying to kill me." And when she pressed further, the truth shattered her. The man responsible was not a stranger. It was Damien, Adrian's own stepbrother. The same man who had warned her that being Adrian's wife was a death sentence. Cracks in the marriage. The revelation poisoned everything. Was Adrian protecting her or using her? Did he marry her to save his empire or to bury her father's gallery, the very place that might hold the final clue to Elliot's death? Lily didn't know what to believe anymore. Every word out of his mouth felt like a test, every kiss like a trap. She wanted to walk away, but the contract chained her. To leave was to lose everything. And perhaps worse than the doubt was the pull, because no matter how much she tried to hate him, she couldn't silence the fire in her veins when he touched her. No matter how much she told herself it was business, her heart betrayed her with every stolen glance. The gallery burns. Then came the night the Carter Gallery went up in flames. Lily stood on the street, smoke choking the air, flames devouring the walls that had once held her father's legacy. Sirens wailed, but it was too late. Everything was gone. Her past, her promise to her father, her very identity. And as the roof caved in, Adrian gripped her wrist, his jaw tight. "There's nothing you can do. It's already gone." But Lily knew better. This was not an accident. This was a message. The enemy within. The deeper Lily sank, the clearer it became. She wasn't just a pawn in Adrian's game. She was caught in a war she didn't understand. Damien circled like a vulture, whispering that Adrian was lying to her, that the real monster was the man she shared a bed with. Vanessa appeared like a ghost at every event, dripping venom into Lily's ear, insisting that Adrian destroyed everyone he touched. And Adrian himself, secretive, manipulative, infuriating, gave her no answers. Only warnings, only smirks, only touches that set her world on fire and left her hating herself for wanting more. The fall. By the end of it, Lily no longer recognized her reflection. The gallery was gone, her reputation shredded, her marriage a cage lined with diamonds. The girl who once wandered halls of art and dreamed of beauty was now trapped in a nightmare of power, lies, and betrayal. Adrian had promised her survival, but all she saw around her was destruction. And yet, in the shadows of downfall, one truth refused to be silenced. The key to everything, the fire, Elliot's death, the war between brothers, was hidden in her father's gallery. And though the building lay in ashes, the secret was still alive. Lily Carter had entered Adrian's world to save herself. Now she realized she might not survive it at all. The city was burning, not with fire, but with whispers. Every headline carried their names. Every newsfeed replayed the scandal. Adrian Knight, the untouchable billionaire, and Lily Carter, the girl branded a liar, a manipulator, a fraud. But the real war was not fought in newspapers. It was fought in the shadows, where blood, betrayal, and truth waited to collide. A final lead. It began with a note slipped under Lily's door. The paper was crumpled, the handwriting rushed, but the words carved ice into her veins. Check the painting. White rose. The truth is there. Her father's gallery was gone, reduced to ashes, but she remembered, deep in the private collection, had always been one odd painting, a woman in a field holding a single white rose. Her father had called it worthless, but he never let anyone near it. Now, she knew why. That night, she confronted Adrian. His face paled when she described the painting, his jaw clenching in a way that told her everything. "It's real," he whispered, almost to himself. "What is?" she demanded. But before he could answer, the penthouse lights flickered, glass shattered somewhere down the hall, and then silence. A voice slithered through the dark. "I warned you, Adrian." The betrayal. They weren't alone. When the lights returned, Damien stood in the doorway, his suit immaculate, his smile a blade. "You should have stayed out of this, Lily," he said, his tone soft but deadly. "This was always between brothers." Adrian's body tensed, rage burning in his eyes. "You killed Elliot." Damien's smirk deepened. "I did what had to be done. Father always favored him. But you, Adrian, you were useful, reckless enough to distract the world, while I built what should have been mine." Lily's stomach twisted. All the whispers, all the half-truths, all the shadows, this was it. But Damien wasn't alone. From the corner, Vanessa emerged, crimson lips curved in triumph. "Did you really think I'd let you keep him, darling?" She sneered at Lily. The world crashed in on itself. The man Lily married, the enemies who haunted them, the truth Elliot had died to protect. It all converged in a single moment of devastating clarity. Flames of war. The confrontation exploded in chaos. Damien lunged, steel flashing in his hand. Adrian moved faster, shoving Lily behind him as the blade sliced through the air. They crashed against the desk, papers scattering like snow. "Run!" Adrian barked, but Lily couldn't. Not this time. She grabbed the nearest object, a heavy glass vase, and hurled it at Damien. It shattered against his shoulder, buying Adrian a breath of time. The fight was brutal. Fists, blood, the raw violence of brothers bound by hatred. Lily screamed for them to stop, but the sound drowned in the clash of flesh against flesh. Vanessa stood to the side, amused, her eyes glinting like a predator watching prey. Then she raised her gun. The world slowed. Her finger curled on the trigger, the barrel aimed at Adrian's heart. "No!" Lily lunged, slamming into Vanessa just as the shot rang out. The bullet tore through the room, embedding in the wall inches from Adrian. The two women wrestled, nails clawing, teeth bared, years of venom erupting in one savage battle. Vanessa hissed in Lily's ear, "You'll never survive him. He destroys everything he touches." But Lily didn't let go. She fought with the strength of desperation, the strength of someone who had lost everything and refused to lose more. The ashes of the gallery. When it was over, Damien lay bleeding, clutching his shoulder where Adrian's blade had found its mark. Vanessa fled into the night, her laughter echoing down the corridor like a promise of return. Adrian stood, chest heaving, blood smeared across his jaw. Lily trembled, the gun heavy in her hands. It should have been over, but the war was not finished. Hours later, the police announced the fire that destroyed the Carter Gallery was no accident. Evidence pointed to arson, funded and executed by Damien, with Vanessa's help. Her father's legacy had been murdered as surely as Elliot had. The truth was finally visible, but the cost was unbearable. Adrian's sacrifice. The board of Knight Enterprises struck back with fury. Stocks plummeted. Investors demanded Adrian's removal. Reporters branded him reckless, compromised, blinded by his wife. Adrian had built his empire on power, on control, on never bending. But for the first time, he bent. In front of flashing cameras, he announced his resignation. "I am stepping down as CEO," he declared, voice steady but raw. "This is not defeat. This is a choice. My family, my wife, my future, they matter more than an empire built on ashes." The world gasped. The Playboy had surrendered his throne. For her, Lily's heart broke. She had entered his life for money, but he had given up everything for love. The collapse. That night, the final blow came. An anonymous package arrived at Lily's door. Inside were photographs, Adrian, Damien, and Vanessa together, smiling, drinking, the timestamp just weeks ago. Her blood turned to ice. Adrian had told her he hadn't seen them in months, that they were enemies, that the war was real. But the proof was in her hands. Her world crumbled. Was Adrian lying all along? Had she been nothing more than a pawn in a deeper game? She confronted him, tears streaming, voice breaking. "Tell me it isn't true. Tell me you weren't with them." Adrian's silence was worse than any answer. The inferno. The final act played out in fire. The last clue to Elliot's murder surfaced. An address scribbled in the margins of a note, pointing to an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the city. Adrian insisted they go alone. Lily followed, fear coiling tight in her chest. The warehouse was dark, the air thick with dust and rust. A figure waited in the shadows, calm, deliberate, as if expecting them. When he turned, Lily's breath stopped. It wasn't Damien. It wasn't Vanessa. It was someone she never imagined. Her father, alive. The fire that killed Elliot. The painting with the white rose. The gallery he had sworn to protect. It all tied back to him. "Lily," he whispered, his eyes wet with sorrow. "There are things you don't understand. Things I never told you." Her world shattered. The man she had loved, the man she had mourned, was the mastermind behind the darkness that had consumed them all. Tragedy. In that warehouse, truth and betrayal collided. Gunfire echoed. Screams tore through the night. Adrian fought to protect her. Lily fought to uncover the last fragments of truth, and her father, broken, guilty, desperate, made his final stand. By dawn, the warehouse smoldered in silence. Damien was gone. Vanessa had vanished, and Lily's father lay dead at her feet, this time truly gone. The white rose painting was found in the wreckage, half burned, its secret lost forever. Lily stood in the ruins, her dress torn, her hands stained with ash. Adrian wrapped his arms around her, his chest heaving, his empire gone, his family destroyed. They had survived, but survival was not victory. It was tragedy. Because in the end, everything they had fought for, gallery, empire, family, was gone. All that remained was the choice before them, to walk away shattered, or to cling to each other in the ruins. The fire had burned everything, the gallery, the empire, the lies that had bound them. What remained was silence, heavy, aching, almost unbearable. For the world, Adrian Knight was finished. The Playboy billionaire who once ruled boardrooms and front-page headlines was now a fallen king. For Lily Carter, the girl who once clung to her father's gallery, the price was far greater. She had lost her past, her innocence, her illusions. And yet in the ashes, something unexpected survived. It wasn't wealth, it wasn't power, it was love. A love forged in betrayal, tested by fire, scarred by loss, but real, undeniable, unbreakable. When Adrian resigned, the world called it weakness. But Lily knew better. It was sacrifice. It was proof that behind the armor of arrogance was a man who had never stopped bleeding from the night he lost his brother. When Lily signed that contract, she thought she was selling herself for survival, but she discovered something deeper: the strength to fight back, the courage to stand tall in a world built to crush her, the truth that love cannot be written into a clause. Their legacy was not the gallery or the empire. It was the reminder that even in a world of ruthless power and endless deceit, two broken souls could still find each other. Maybe the world loved the billionaire. Maybe the tabloids loved the scandal. But those who looked closer saw something else. Two human beings, scarred but still standing, not bound by contracts, not defined by power, but held together by the one thing neither had expected to find: love. And perhaps that was worth everything.